So it is the morning of day 21. So I left off in the last video, the day 17 to 20 video, talking about characters on the trail. And I kind of dwelt on the whole ex-military thing. Obviously there are far more, and one little notable section of American society that's very obviously missing is, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, it's purely an observation, there are no coloured people on the trail, which is kind of odd. I have mentioned it to a couple of people that I've been pally with, and they said it's actually a sort of a social status thing, that it will kick in more, but it seems to be a sort of a white dominated activity. However, just a little aside. So before I just leave that topic of characters, last night in Tri-Corner Knob Shelter, yeah, and you did hear that right, it is called Tri-Corner Knob Shelter. A woman hiked in who was probably, I don't know, late 50s, and started explaining, just giving us a bit of her story. And it turns out that she's only got 4 days left on her through hike. She is suffering from some sort of debilitating disease. I didn't think it was polite to ask her exactly what it was. But she started her hike the end of April last year. So because you have a rolling 12-month window to do the entire trail, and you can do it in any sequence you like, and in any direction you like, when her disease sort of struck her down, and she said it's completely random, it's unpredictable, but while she was hiking she took ill again and had to go into hospital for quite some time, and she was very concerned about whether she'd ever get to finish the trail. But she got out of hospital, started hiking. She's done the entire northern section, and she's actually done the start of the southern section as well. She's now going southbound. She reckons she's about 50 to 60 miles left, and she's confident that she'll do that in 4 days. And it's just another example of the kind of character that you meet. You would pass this woman on the street and you would never think, there's a very determined hiker there. But she obviously is a very determined person, and fair play to her, she's quite inspirational. So it's one of those little weapons that you keep in the back of your mind if you're having an off day. And I haven't had an off day, I've had an off hour or two here and there. A few days ago I kind of almost ran out of food, and I'd had sort of the wrong food for a couple of days, and my energy levels were just really low, and it had me questioning my ability to keep going. But in reality it's not an ability thing, it's not about fitness or anything else, it was just fuel. It's as simple as that. You just got to remember your body is a machine and you've got to give it the right fuel. This morning, I feel this morning like I felt on day one, completely fit and healthy. Still got my bit of a snivel going on, hopefully that clears up. I've had it for about 6 weeks, but when you meet people like her, you think, I can do this. And the point she was making at the end is that we all need to just keep our minds open about how we might have to complete the hike. If something takes you off the trail and it pushes you to a point where the northern section is going to be closed due to snow, well, you can get to the northern section early, do that section, and then come back, or just go southbound and finish the hike that way. So that was a good message. So there you go. I'm going to deal with another question. Delighted that some of my old Ablana reunion guys are watching. It's great to get some comments from you guys. One really nice guy in particular, an old school buddy of mine, Ger Dunn. Hi Ger. Posed a question, which is quite a good one. And he was asking, he actually asked me two, but I'll just deal with one now. One was, which apps am I using to create these videos? So to fully break that question down, so just thinking about what you see when you look at one of my videos. First of all, I use a picture editing app called Prisma, which is great fun to use and it's free. you can take any photographs that you have and you sort of put it through Prisma filters of various types, and you'll see images like this. Or this. And even this. So it's good, you get some really good ones. So that image you see of me in like a radioactive setting of me standing, I'm actually standing on top of Two Rock Mountain in the Dublin Hills. That's created with Prisma. Then I've superimposed that picture on top of an intro which is provided by an app called Intro Maker. Again, it's free. And it gives you a load of little templates to work with, so you can start a really cool little funky video for yourself. So you've got that picture of mine, but if you look in the background, you've got that sort of sparkling square thing going on. You can do loads of stuff with it, but I've just used it for that, to give myself a little 5-second intro and exit from my videos. And obviously I've dropped little bits of text on it as well, where it says Whitey on the AT, and it's got those little sounds in there. So that's Intro Maker. So then the actual movie itself is pulled together in the standard Apple iMovie app, which is quite simple to use. It allows you to pull little short video clips in that you've made, pull pictures in, set the duration of them, etc, etc. Very, very simple to use, and then you just export the video out. So that's the three main things. The other little things I would mention, to create the little statistics page at the end. So the statistics themselves are coming from a combination of Fitbit. So I have a Fitbit app which syncs with my Fitbit watch. So that gives me the total steps, gives me the total distance, and then the AT distance is given to me by the hiking app, which is called GutHook, which is a superb app. I've mentioned that a few times before. That gives me, shows me exactly where I am at any point in time, and tells me exactly what mile marker I'm at. So that's where I get the AT miles section from. And then all I do is just take a screenshot of a note, you know, a simple note, and I just crop it down so you're just seeing the actual text. And I throw that in towards the end of the movies. So that's it. Prisma, Intro Maker, iMovie, Fitbit, Notes, and GutHook. There you go. Hope that answers your question, Jer. I'll deal with some more questions later. Talk to you soon. So this is Standing Bear Hostel. Did an 18.1 mile day. We got an honor system store. We got some chilling areas. Bunkhouse there that I'm in. Shower block over there, which I'll use very shortly. That's kind of cool. Kind of hippie. Kind of funky. Got the last bunk. Good morning, Ireland. It is Monday the 15th of April. That makes this day 23. So yesterday I ended up taking an unplanned zero because there were pretty nasty storm warnings. So the hostel that I had got to the previous night, Standing Bear, which is kind of interesting, sort of bohemian, gypsy-ish kind of style to it. I ended up staying there a second night. It was okay. I was a little bit bored yesterday. Some very nice people there. I had some really brilliant conversations with one or two people. But there you go. So this morning, it's mid-morning, I'm going about 3 hours. The plan today is to reach a shelter area which is at about the 15-mile point, so I'm probably close to halfway there. It's quite a beautiful bright morning, but it was very, very cold this morning. I think it was 3 Celsius down at the hostel, and then at the higher elevations there were sort of little dustings of snow around. So definitely I got sort of sub-zero up there. So I've just semi-derobed. I was getting a little warm on the way back down. And hopefully, I think the plan, or the weather forecast today is to go up another few degrees, but stay bright. Very slight chance of rain. And then tomorrow is supposed to be really nice. It's supposed to get to 21 Celsius and be sunny tomorrow. So I'm hoping that today and tomorrow will be 2 reasonably big days. Today, from the hostel to Hot Springs is something like 34 miles. So I want to do that in 2 days. Distance wise, today will be slightly less than half, but most of the effort is put in today because you've got to, get back up to high elevation, which I've already done. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. There's no major pressure. I have, enough food to get me into a 3rd day. But Hot Springs is supposed to be very nice. It's supposed to be very hiker friendly. And when I get there, I need to stock up to about 5 days of food, because it'll be about a 5-day, 70 something mile trek onto Irwin, Tennessee, where there's another really good hostel that I want to stay at. So that's that. Just to deal with a couple of little questions. Again, thanks to everybody for the questions. It's great. It gives me a bit of a buzz, bit of a lift, show that everyone's awake and paying attention. So a couple of little ones. Somebody asked me about, actually it was a fellow hiker, is it Binerman or Binerman? Thanks for joining the trip. So you were asking me about this water bottle that's on my shoulder strap. So the plan was, go back a couple of steps. At home, in preparation for this, I was using a 3 bladder system where I had a dirty bladder. That sounds a bit weird to non-hikers, but it's basically the large water bladder where you collect water straight from streams and rivers and whatever, and before you filter it and treat it. So we call that our dirty bladder. I was then filtering into a smaller bladder, 1.8 litre bladder, and using that for cooking, washing, brushing teeth, all those kind of things. I then had a 1 litre bladder which I was using for a drink mix, so I'd put my electrolytes etc. in that, and I had it hooked up to the tube system with the bite valve on the end. If you look at my preparation video, you'll probably see that in quite a few of the videos. But in order to save some weight, I did away with 2 of those bladders, and I'm still using the large 3 litre bladder, which is the dirty bladder. So I collect the large amount of water in that. Jury's out as to whether I'll keep doing that actually. So my plan was to switch to the famous Smart Water bottles. For those at home, the reason we use the Smart Water brand is because the thread on the caps perfectly match the thread on the what we call the Sawyer squeeze filters. So you literally connect the filter directly onto the water bottle, which is really handy. So my plan was to pick up one of these sort of mesh pockets that you see a lot of hikers with. But when I got to REI in Atlanta, they didn't have any. So I got chatting with one of the assistants about Irishness in Ireland and what have you. And he very kindly disappeared into the back stores and managed to find the last one of these that he had. I don't know whether you can see that well. Basically, the black part is quite a strong rubber band that you stretch over the neck of the bottle, and then it's attached to a carabiner, which very conveniently and with one hand clips onto this little part of my shoulder strap, and then it can hang there. And it's really handy. So you've got to keep your drinking water and drink mix close to hand to encourage you to drink and drink. So that's what that is. So REI, I think it is an REI product. So Binerman, I'll say Binerman. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right. Hopefully that answers your question. What else? Another part of Ger Dunn's question. Ger mentioned calories. So the rough guide for men on the AT is on average we burn something like 6,000 calories per day, which is certainly for me bordering on impossible to replace. I don't have a huge appetite. I'm still waiting for the big hiker hunger to kick in, but I think I'm taking in somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 a day by grazing. I don't do huge meals, but by grazing on things I like through the day, various nut mixes and some chocolate and whatever high calorie stuff. I'd like to think I'm getting to 3,500 or so, but when you crunch the numbers, that equates to the guts of 4 or 5 pounds of body weight per week. And based on the scales at Standing Bear Hostel, I have to agree. So 3 weeks in, and unfortunately, even though I kind of knew it was going to happen, I have dropped by something like 15 pounds. So I am doing my best to eat as much as possible. I think the hunger is increasing a bit, but I am sort of forcing food into me. I have to. So that's the calorie thing. Let's see, what else? Someone asked about the protocol at night. Might have been Connor. Maybe it was someone else, about the protocol at night in terms of settling down and being noisy around the shelters. So there's a fun atmosphere around the shelters most nights, depending on the mix of people you get. There'll be plenty of good conversations going, maybe a bit of a laugh or a game going on. Some people will have sort of got into their sleeping bags anytime from kind of 7 onwards. But amazingly, what we call hiker midnight, which is about 9 o'clock, it suddenly goes very quiet and everyone's very respectful, and that's great because you do need your sleep. So that's kind of what happens there. It's sort of an unwritten rule. 9 o'clock, everybody shuts up and allows people to get to sleep. In the mornings, it's sort of a reverse of that. Some people that want to get going early will quietly shuffle about getting stuff ready and do their best not to disturb others. So that's that. Catch you later. Walking along fantasizing about food. What I would give for, I don't know, a big Wagamama's dinner with Emily and the girls. One of Emily's big roast dinners. Or Granny Doyle's Sunday corned beef and roast potatoes. Or my Auntie Mary's steak and kidney pie, a big hunk of that. Oh yeah. However, I have to stick to my dehydrated food and my trail mix that I've been grazing on all morning, puffing and panting up this never-ending bloody mountain. Right, whoever got mentioned in that food list, when I get home, you know what I want. I mean it. Catch you later. So I don't know whether the camera is picking it up, but I'm coming under fire here. Because it was so cold last night, now it's windy. The wind blowing icicles like this down from the trees. They may as well be little pieces of glass. Jesus, they hurt my head. It's a flipping helmet I need. I should have brought my motorbike helmet, not a baseball cap. They're kind of everywhere. Ow, shit. Weird. This is an unusual hilltop called Max Patch. It's got like a meadow top. It's crazy windy, so hopefully you can hear me. I'll just do a sweep around now. 360. Beautiful up here, but bloody cold. So it's Tuesday, April 16th. This is day 24. Good morning, Ireland, again. It's a beautiful morning. Hasn't quite warmed up yet, but it's getting there. So I just, a bit jungly here, just collected some water for the day, or the first half of the day. Left camp about 20 minutes ago. It was quite a pleasant night. It was kind of cold, but I kind of like that. It's a lot better than damp and wet and whatever. So today's plan is to get to Hot Springs. So it'll be just a shade under 18 miles. So no particular hurry. I'll probably go a few hours and then make some lunch, which would be a tortilla wrap with some cured meat, mayo, dash of olive oil, some Swiss cheese, which I really love. So I'll make one or two of those, get that inside me. And excuse me, and I had my oatmeal-y porridgey breakfast, 2 portions, you know, growing lad, burning all those calories. Growing lad, I'm shrinking. Can't close my trousers anymore, they just fall straight down around my ankles. So thankfully I have a continuously variable belt that I'm able to pull in. Yeah, looking forward to today. Let me think of a question that someone might have asked. Thinkity, thinkity, think. Okay, I can't remember your name because I know it was one of these weird modern names that I think young people use. But it was something to do with a typical day in the life of a thru hiker. Very interesting question. Well done. Sorry I don't remember your name. Okay, so you'll either wake up in a hostel, a motel if you're lucky, your tent if you're, I think, even more lucky, or one of the shelters. So either way, it's you know, you've probably had a tough day the previous day. Most days are tough. So it's usually a groggy start to the day. You're trying to get your body moving again. What I like to do is sort of forget about my gear, just get out of my sleep clothes into my hiking clothes, and just before I leave that one, each morning and each evening I put a special cream on the soles of my feet and in between my toes, which was recommended by a podiatrist at home, which has 10% urea content. And I mean, I haven't had a single blister. Everyone around me seems to have blisters, so I'm not going to argue with that. I use what are called ingingy toe socks. So they're like a glove, but they go over your toes individually, and they also help prevent blisters. And then I use an oversock, which is like an ankle length. They're called darn tough quarter hikers. And that combination I'm not going to mess with because it's been working perfectly so far. Switch hands. So get into my hiking clothes. You don't really have the facility to wash properly. You can do a river wash. But what I primarily am thinking at that time of the morning is getting fluid into me and then getting food in. So I try to get, you know, the guts of a litre of fluid in some form or another into me before I even start walking. So that will involve initially drinking some water with electrolytes in them. And then I use an amount to either dehydrate a breakfast or make an oatmeal or make some sort of a hot drink as well. And then I'll finish off that litre before I head out of camp. So it's then a case of, usually there's sort of conversation around the shelter if it isn't too early. People are getting ready. Generally in the morning they're a little quieter than they are at night. Sorry. And then packing up. So for me, I have to get my, so with regard to packing up, everyone probably has their preferred method, but generally the heavy stuff should be as close to your back as possible and sort of low down. So pretty universally, sleeping bag and air mattress go in the bottom of my pack. Then I have everything in individual dry bags, you know, the roll top dry bags. So I have a food bag, an extremities bag, clothes bag, what I call a ditty bag, which has all the little knickknacks in there, chargers and cables and you know, toiletries, first aid, anything medicinal, repair tape, all that odds and ends in one bag that I call a digibag. I have my stove bag, which again is a separate bag, etc, etc. So I've kind of got a routine for getting that. My food bag is by far my heaviest bag, so that is just sort of below shoulder level but right up against my back. You don't want it hanging off behind you, and you don't want it too high either, because it can topple you over if it's, you know, if you lose your balance at all. So that's packing up, and then it's just a case of, you know, heading out of camp. So the trails tend to be quiet in the morning. If you're the first one out, you spend a lot of time clearing cobwebs from across the trail. I don't think I've been first out yet, but I keep hearing these stories. So yeah, and then it's just a case of getting going. So generally, you know, I take a look at this Good Hook app, and I'll typically plan, I don't know, 1, 2 or 3 days in advance. I'll have a bit of an idea. You have to, in terms of knowing how much food you've got to carry and where the next resupply is. In my bum bag, which here they call fanny pack, that's kind of tragic at home, but I have my bum bag there. In there I have, if I think it's going to be cold, I'll have a pair of liner socks and various snacks for the day. So then during the day, you're grazing on your food, you're sipping your drinks, enjoying the scenery, meeting people you haven't seen in a few days if you can't coincide with them again, leapfrogging people, they're leapfrogging you, and they take breaks or you take breaks. Conversations develop over the days. Typically you get near a town every, I suppose on average every 3 days or so. Today, for the first time on the northbound trail, I'll actually be going through a town, i.e. the trail literally goes straight through a town, which is Hot Springs. And I hope to find a bunk or something there tonight. I'm not neroing or zeroing. I'm just going to take hopefully an opportunity to have a shower, which would be fantastic, and possibly do some laundry, which would also be great. So that's a typical day, just sort of a mixture, whether you're going to see a town or a hostel or whatever. The one thing that I haven't yet experienced is the trail magic food. I described the whole trail magic concept before, but apparently I missed another one yesterday up on Max Patch. So you remember that mountaintop that was all kind of meadowy? Apparently just after I left, people who were planning on doing a southbound hike later in the year decided to go up there yesterday and set up a big sort of food thing. They were giving out food and stuff, which would have been nice. And they're nice little social events as well as everything else. So I've missed that one again. So I've missed at least 4 big ones and probably 1 or 2 others. So the trail magic I've experienced so far has been lifts and, you know, stuff like that. But the barbecue stops would be nice. So yeah, okay, so back to the day in the life. So that's obviously at some point you stop and you try and get a lunch into. Sometimes that's difficult if the rain is heavy. You'll try and coincide with a shelter that might be part way along your day, so you can prepare some lunch without getting wet. It's lunch, and then same again in the afternoon with your hiking and leapfrogging and all that. And then at some point you'll wind into camp, ready to shut down for the day. Most of the time I've been in the vicinity of shelters. Then you're just thinking in terms of getting your evening meal ready. What I like to do, generally I've been getting to the shelters fairly early. Once I'm hiking, I'm a little bit quick, so generally speaking I pass people, but it gets me to the shelters early, and I usually have like a kind of a second lunch, which is usually 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and then I'll chill, get my tent set up or get my sleeping pad set up in the shelter. And then when it gets to sort of sometime between 7 and 8, really when there's just enough light, I'll prepare let's call it a dinner, which is usually it's pretty well always a dehydrated meal. And then just before I go to bed, I usually have, especially if it's going to be cold, I get some more kind of carbs into me, or a snack bar or something, which helps the body generate heat through the night. So I'll do that as well. So that's kind of the day in the life. Hopefully that answers your question. And there you go. You've probably picked up most of the day in the life over the last 3.5 weeks. You've seen a lot of it. At least I hope you have. Hopefully some of you like it, and hopefully some of you are motivated in the future to do something like this. It doesn't have to be a 5-month thing like this, but just to hit the hills, enjoy it, have some solo time or time with friends, whatever you like. It's a great way to unwind and clear the head, and you know, get on with nature and whatever. And I love all of it, always have. So it's one of those Marmite things, I guess. Love it or hate it, but I love it. Okay, folkly dokes, I'll catch you later.